So I'm excited to be here today. Bearers of the Oath number 5. And Shane's going to hate that I'm going to get ready to do this because what he says is it's all about the guys. And it is. He's right. But it's also about him too. Without his work, this stuff doesn't happen. So I want everybody to give him a round of applause. So Shane calls me up when he has this idea and he says, Tom, I want you to do the keynote. He says, I'm not giving you an option, I'm telling you you're going to do it. And by this time I'm used to it because where's Kevin at? He did the same thing to me for Port Arthur. But what I'm here to tell you is that these guys, what they do for me is they bring me outside of my comfort zone so that I can grow. Because if I'm comfortable, I'm not growing. And I've learned that. So I'm grateful for these two. They brought me out of it. Today we're going to be talking about finding your why. So here's some learning objectives. You guys can read them. Everybody good with that? Yeah? It ain't that kind of presentation, trust me. We're not doing any of this right here. So that's just a little joke, little humor to get kind of get things rolling. So I'm also a walker, so you're going to have to deal with me here. So as we go through this, we're going to talk about the why. We're going to talk about the fire service to start out. That's our commonality. That's what brought us here. Then I'm going to give you a little about me and what I've been through and where God brought me to. Okay? So again, like I said, we're not going to do this, but this is what we're going to do right here. Because this is important. The fire service is too old. There's nothing new. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to regurgitate information that I've been taught by people that I care about, that people that built me in the fire service. And they're listed up there. And what you're going to see quote unquote big names in the fire service. You're going to see names that you don't recognize. But every single name that's listed up here had an impact on me in the fire service. It's why I am who I am in the fire service. Some of them are crew members. Some of them I've just taken classes from. But they impacted me very greatly. And I'm going to give credit where credit is due because when I saw this was Kyle Romagus doing a presentation called Cruel Intentions, and he had a slide like this. And I thought, you know what? This is what the fire service needs. Giving credit where credit is due. Because like I said, I didn't make any of this up. I'm just giving it to you in a way that made sense to me. So why am I here? I'm here to get you psyched up for the week. How many people are going to be here for the whole week? Because I didn't get to see those hands. Yes, you're in for a treat. You're in for a treat. I want you to get psyched up. I want to inspire you. But as my brother Raymond Dorval says, inspiration is not enough. We have to rely on discipline to get us through. But nonetheless, I want to inspire you today. We're going to talk about the why. The why is important. As a leader, as an instructor, we have to give you the why. You see, when I started in the fire service in 2005, it was here's what you do, and it was a yes sir, yes ma'am, and off you went. No questions asked, no whys, none of that. You weren't allowed to. The why is a renaissance within the fire service. It's good. We need it. It challenges me to be better. Because if I ask you to do something, I can't give you the why, your ears should turn off immediately. We have to understand the why. We have to be able to give the why. So we're going to talk about the why. Before we get into defining the why, I want to tell you a little bit about me. Why I am who I am. My base level, my foundation is my faith. This is where I start. I believe you can't build anything up unless you have a good foundation. This is my foundation. I believe in God. I believe that Jesus Christ is my Savior. And the Bible is the infallible Word of God. It's important. It makes me who I am. The next part of my why. My family. my wife. We got married in 2005. We dated / engaged for about 6 months. That's another story for another time. Ask me about it on a break. I'll tell you all about it. But we got married, and then about 2 months after that, I joined the fire service as a volunteer. So she knew me for a very short time prior to the fire service. Then I entered into the fire service. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is my biggest supporter, my wife. She supports everything that I do. Why I'm here today is because of her support. I'm going to tell you a little story. We were here yesterday setting up. I FaceTimed her. I'm showing her around everything we're setting up. She tears up. I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "I'm sad." And I'm happy. She said, "I'm happy because you're there. I'm happy for what you're going to do. But I'm sad because I can't be there." That hit me hard. It takes time away from her when we do things like this. Everybody sitting in this room left their family to come here. It's important we make it worth it to them. The next part of my why. My wife and I were married for about 12 years. And then we had our daughter, 10. She's 8 years old. She's full of energy. She's in the 3rd grade. She loves soccer. She loves playing outside and wearing a dress and playing in the mud. And I love it. So this is a huge part of my why right here. This is my support system. The next part of my why. I'm a battalion chief of the best group of individuals I could possibly ask for. They push me, and I push them. You see, they've accepted a challenge. Nod your head in acknowledgement if this is true. It's a challenge to work with me, ain't it? But they also challenge me too. The next part of what they accepted was trying to reach the expectation that the citizens set for us. They've accepted that challenge. And I'm going to tell you right now, they're knocking it out of the park. And I'm so proud of them. So a little bit of a story time here. A little over 10-ish years ago, I was at a fire conference, not much different than this. Sitting in Galveston, Texas, at the Third Coast Fire Conference. Chief Howard Reinwalt was putting together. And at that conference, Chief Mo Davis got up and gave a presentation. And during that presentation, he hits the group with this. He says, "When the citizens of our community lay their children to bed at night, we are their keepers." Listen to that one more time. Chief Mo Davis, Houston Fire Department. He said, "When the citizens of our communities lay their children to bed at night, we are their keepers." That was my aha moment in the fire service. Hit me like a ton of bricks. I finally understood why I was here. I got it. There was no more work to be done on setting expectations. Zero. The citizens already do it. All we got to do is do the work to reach it. And I'm telling you right now, it's a continuous work to try and reach it. It hit me hard. So hard that we put it as our first expectation for our shift. And underneath it, it says, "All expectations that follow will meet the above." That goes from washing the truck, to cleaning the station, to how we dress, to how we respond to emergencies. It hit me hard. So let's talk about how are we going to define the why. So as I was building this presentation out, I was sitting there thinking, how do you define why? How do you define why you're here, why you're in the fire service? And I boiled it down to 3 questions. Why do you care? Why do you show up? Why do you invest? Now I'm going to give you my answers, but here's what I want you to do. As we're going through this, and I'm giving you the answers that I came up with, I want you to think about you, your crew, your shift, your station, your department. So again, the three questions we're going to ask. Why do you show up? Why do you care? Why do you invest? I believe this is a good starting point on how we can start to define our why. So why do you show up? Here's a little secret. It's not mandatory. Nobody makes you get out of bed and go to work. Nobody drafted me. Anybody draft you, Scott? Anybody give you a signing bonus? Now, we may have to change that because of where we're at right now. I've seen some departments started to hand out some sign-on bonuses, but I didn't get one. See, I think that it comes back to that first expectation that I just told you about. Chief Mo Davis said, when the citizens of our community lay their children to bed at night, we are their keepers. That's why we show up. That's why we come to work. Everything we do should be set to that. So here it is again. And this is what I want you to do. Write it down. Take a picture. Imprint it in your brain and write it on your heart. It impacted me so greatly, I believe it can do the same for you. Excuse me with this clicker for a second. So why do you care? You care. You're sitting here today. You showed up. I believe all of you care. We have to care. It's a must. I also believe that's who we're built to be. And again, these are my answers. I told you about my faith. I believe that God gave me the physical and mental capability to do this job. And I take that very seriously. Every time that I come to work. And as I was thinking through this, I thought, well, if not us, then who else is going to do it? Who else is going to show up? We fix things. We're in the business of solving problems. We arrive with a unit full of stuff. We show up, and no matter the time of day or night, no matter their age, no matter if it's, hey, I just slipped out of bed, need some help back in bed. Not only will we put you back in bed, we'll tuck you in. We'll get you a cup of water. I've watched crews, these two sitting right up here. There's a gentleman riding his bike, down on his luck. Didn't have a car. 110 degrees in Texas during the summer. Riding his bike had heat exhaustion, falls over. Those guys picked that bike up, went to Walmart, exchanged the bike for him before he got out of the hospital. That's caring. That's what we should do. And the last part of this is what I believe, and I think this is the most important thing. The fire service is the last semblance of how humanity is supposed to treat one another. We're it. Who else is doing it? I can't think of any other job field that does this the way that we do. The way that we treat people, that's how humanity is supposed to treat one another. That's the most important part of this. Why do we invest? I'm going to be honest with you. Sometimes it's a selfish endeavor. We work out to better ourselves. We go to a class just like you're doing today to better yourself. It's selfish at times. The next part of that is we invest in others. We go to these classes. We work out as a crew. We take it back to our crews so that we can make them better. Because ultimately, on the day that we get called for that one, in order to be the team that the citizens need, we have to invest in each other. I'm going to let you in on a little bit of a secret here. You've got an amazing group of instructors today and over the next few hands-on days. They're going to invest in you. They're going to give you everything they got. Here's the secret. This is what they want for their investment. They want you to take it back. Don't let that message die. We're going to give you what we have so that you can take it out to others. And if you don't, you're not doing it justice. You have to take it back. Spread the message. Spread the word. So we talked about how do we define it? Why do you care? Why do you show up? Why do you invest? I think you have to define things before we put action steps behind it. So now let's talk about the action steps. How do we get there? We define the why. How do we make that work? 3 things: expectations, accountability, and setting a standard. So again, I told you I like to tell stories. I'm going to tell you a little bit of one. So I've only been at Cibolo for about 2.5 years, roundabout. When I went over there, there was no battalion chief positions prior to that. It was 3 separate stations run by lieutenants, and it was kind of a little bit of a mess, if I'm being honest. And I worked at a neighboring department that we ran auto aid with them. So I knew a lot of folks over there. When they posted that job, I thought, you know what? I don't really want to do this, but I thought I could have some impact. So as I thought through it, I thought, all right, let's make this move. And I applied. 3 positions. I was the only one from the outside that got it. 2 others from the internal took the other 2 shifts. And when I walked in that first day, we set expectations. And about a year after I was there, one of my lieutenants and I were talking on the phone. As we're talking, he says, you know, how do we get from where we were to where we're at now? I told him, I said, Eddie, it's pretty simple. We set expectations, we hold each other accountable, and we set a standard. Conversation continued, and as I'm talking to him, I said, you know, Eddie, I guess at some point in time we had to go ahead and put boots on the ground and do some work. Hours and hours of reps. Conversation continued on. I said, you know, I guess we had to build relationships, and with building relationships comes trust. And as we wrapped up that conversation, I told him, I said, well, I guess it's not as simple as what I thought initially. But if you have these 3 things going on, I think the rest of it comes along with it. So let's dive into each one a little bit more in depth. And I have a question for you. By raising your hand, how many of you in this room have a written set of expectations, not just thoughts in your head, a written set of expectations for yourself, your shift, your crew, your department? Raise your hands if you got them. That's what's up. So here's the challenge for those that did not raise your hands. Write them down. You see, if we don't write them down, and I'm talking from my experience, I failed people because I had these expectations in my head, but I didn't communicate them to them. That's my fault. That's on me. But I fixed it. And then I was an engine lieutenant, and I started communicating the expectations with the crew. This is what I expect. And then as I walked into that battalion chief position, I thought, well, wow, we probably ought to write them down. And now we've gone to the point that not only they're written down, they sign them. That they're going to accept these expectations. And in that verbiage, when they sign it, it doesn't say that I expect them to be there day one. The verbiage, paraphrasing, of course, it says, I'm going to do my best to work towards reaching these expectations every day. And like I told you before, man, they're knocking it out of the park. So I'm going to give you 3 examples. For those that may or may not have any expectations, I'm going to give you 3 simple examples. Take them or leave them. First one. We expect When we roll up and we're assigned fire attack, from air brakes to water flowing, we expect it's done in under 60 seconds. That's an expectation. Second expectation. If you're not hopping off the rig with your mask on, you will do it in under 20 seconds. Not that hard to do. I watched one of the guys the other day deploy a line from air brakes to water flowing in 39 seconds. I watched another gentleman mask up in under 10 seconds. Not hard to meet, just got to do the work. Thousands and thousands of reps. You see, speed comes with doing things over and over and over again the right way. So many times that even if you fail, you know how to fix it. The last example that I'd love to give you, our shift expects everybody on our shift will be able to throw at least, at a minimum, a 24-foot extension ladder by themselves, no questions asked. Don't care how you do it, just do it. Not a whole lot to ask. Because if we don't do this, it leads to failure. I'm here to tell you that. And you can't have this next piece. You can't have accountability without expectations. I told you before, I had these thoughts in my head because that's all they were. They weren't expectations when I just held them to myself. So there's no way to hold somebody accountable if I don't give them expectations. Here's the next part of that. It's very important. You set expectations and you don't hold people accountable, it's the fastest way to lose them. The good ones. So I'm telling you right now, the good ones, they crave accountability. Not only do they want to be held accountable, but they want those accountable that aren't living up to those expectations. And if you don't do it, you'll lose them. Out the door. They're gone forever. So if you set the expectations, you've got to have accountability going up and going down. So I believe that we ought to operate with standards and standardization. And here's what I mean. We have standard tasks. I gave you the examples. We deploy lines, we throw ladders, and we mask up. That's a standard task. We standardize the way that we do those tasks. And here's why we do that. We do it so when we give assignments, I understand and I know what to expect and how it's going to look. Because if we're not operating with standards and standardization, it gets really weird out there, man. I'm telling you, it does. And once we do these skill sets or tasks a few times, we got to start setting them to the time clock, right? Time these things. Because you don't know what you don't measure. It's impossible to know if we're getting better or getting worse if we're not setting them to the clock. Another story time. Monthly training evolution. It's a weird thought that I had one day. I thought, you know what? We need to have something. We've got 3 stations. Not a big department. 3 stations, that's it. It's easy to do right now. 3 stations at the beginning of the month to all shift lieutenants. I send out this monthly training evolution. And at the top of it, I detail out what that evolution is going to be. And underneath it, I break it down into single skill sets so that they can train on those single skill sets over the month. Then at the end of the month, all 3 stations get together and we do this monthly training exercise. Here's what it did. I didn't realize it was going to do this. Created some friendly competition. Everybody wants to be the best crew. Prove it. Set it to the clock. Compete against one another. I'm going to tell you right now, it rocketed those crews forward. It's amazing what a little friendly competition will do. It's important though. Minimum standards is not where we stop. Never minimum standards. So I thought it was important to discuss as we're talking about finding your why. Why fire conferences? Why'd you show up today? Why have you been to other classes? So I'm going to make some assumptions. I'm sure some people sitting in this room, they want to learn something. get a new skill set. Maybe you've got your skill set down. You just want to put some reps in. Be around, I don't like-minded individuals, because I think that term is used a little bit loosely, and I think what we really ought to say is those people that are going to push us. That's who I want to be around. The guys sitting at these tables, the ones that push me to be better. Maybe you got the reps down and you just want to get outside of your box, because if we're all being honest in here, shift work isn't all unicorns and rainbows, is it? It's difficult at times. We want to get outside of our box and maybe learn something new from somebody else and take that back to our departments and apply it in a way that might work for us. That's okay. It's a good reason to be here. There's another reason that people might want to be here. And I'll be honest with you, it's one of the main reasons that I come. It's to recharge my batteries. Because when I get back from places like this, I'm like the Tasmanian devil when I get back. Tell me if I'm wrong, Nick. It recharges my batteries. There's one more reason that people show up to these, and I think it's not talked about enough. And that's building relationships. If it'll change. There we go. So Shane already put the challenge on the table, but I'm going to bring it back around. I'm going to challenge you. Meet somebody new. Get their phone number. Talk to them. Because here's the worst thing that could happen. You've got somebody's phone number in your phone. You meet some adversity that you've never met before. You reach out to them and maybe they have. It's literally the worst thing that could happen. So what are you waiting for? Meet somebody new. So I want to share with you guys some relationships that I built through fire conferences. Top left, Kevin Pfluger, my brother. Fire conferences. Built our relationship, and it's gone much further than that. He's family. Jesse Castillo. He's having a rough go of it right now. Stage 4 lung cancer. He's in the hospital right now. Praying for him. I ask you to do the same. One of the most humble and driven individuals I've ever met. You see, he was already diagnosed with cancer, and Joe and Kevin put together the Castillo Way. We were there. Day one, hands-on. Jesse's out there with us. There's actually a picture out there. It's not up here right now. I should have put it on there. I knelt down next to him. He's a big engine guy. We were going to teach line deployments. Knelt down next to him. I said, Jesse, what do you think about teaching some line deployments today? Big old smile on his face. That man, what was it, Joe? 90 degrees at 8 o'clock in the morning, 90% humidity. It's Houston. Yeah. Stage 4 lung cancer. Targeted therapy he's taking. He's tired, beat down. He's out there teaching line deployments. Huge smile on his face. One of the most impactful moments that I've ever had while being out on the training field was that with Jesse. Top right, it's a large group of instructors after the last dadgum. We met at our house, got together, got to just hang out. Bottom left. This is an amazing opportunity. We were able to put on a fire conference in San Jose del Cabo in Mexico. What a crazy deal. The fire service will take you to places you never thought. The person in the middle, right behind me, that's Pedro. When we first got there, we were a little bit skeptical of why are we down there. I thought, well, are we down there just to party and look down on them? We proved to them that we weren't. During the course of that fire conference, Pedro was one of our interpreters. He had us over to his house twice, fed us dinner. The night before we were leaving, he went out fishing. After working a conference for 5 days and then going to shift work for the day, he gets off of work and he goes out, he goes fishing and catches a tuna. Has us over. cooks us dinner. A relationship I built at a fire conference. I still talk to him today. I'm going to get to go see him in May. My wife and I are going down on vacation. He had one request, Hakes boots. So no problem, I got you. Starting from the left, that's Jenna, Kevin's wife. Beautiful soul. It's family to me now. Kevin, of course, then to Pedro's right is Noah Katz. Humble, driven, he cares. To his right's my wife, Jenny. Picture in the bottom middle. Shane told you about the guy on the left. Raymond Dorval, my brother. We met for the first time at Orlando Fire Conference. I was his burn crew. That's where we met, fire conference. Since then, inseparable. To his right, Daniel Cano. Another one. Built relationships at fire conferences. Again, Kev, he's in a lot of pictures. To Kevin's right, though, it's the fire chief of Ensenada in Mexico. While we were down there, I watched him in his white helmet, stretching lines, flowing lines, throwing ladders, search and RIT drills. He inspired me with a big smile on his face the whole time through. I want you to look at this bottom right picture. You all know him. That right there is the reason I'm standing before you talking about relationships in the fire service. He taught me what it is to have a true relationship in the fire service. You know what he told me? He told me it's okay to tell your brothers and sisters that you love them. I never would have known that was it not for him. I'm eternally grateful to that man. So here's another thing. See, I told you I started in 2005, and shortly thereafter, I started going to fire conferences, like regionally a little bit, and then FDIC and the bigger ones, right? Well, back then, it was boys' club. It was where we went to get away from our family, whatever that means. That was just dumb. But I'm glad to see the transition. I see wives sitting in the crowd. I see families at fire conferences. I see tracks at fire conferences that promote bringing your family. So I'm here to tell you this is what it does. You see that picture right there, the top right? That's my daughter when we were at Castillo Way. The guys were over there flowing lines, and they saw her playing over there in the water that was running off, and they started spraying in her direction. My wife saw me out there, high-fiving, hugging, bleeding, sweating with others. What does that do for me? Makes her want to support me that much more. That's why I'm standing here today. It's because of them, because of their support. It truly lets them experience why you love this job. So what do we do when we start to lose the why? Here's what I believe. You've got to have a tight-knit circle of people around you. It's those people that when you fall down, they lend a hand. They dust you off, pat you on the back. And I'm here to tell you, it's not the people that are going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what you need to hear. Those are the people you need to look for. So when you start to lose the why, because there's peaks and valleys within this job, I'm getting ready to get into one of those valleys here in just a second, full warning. But without that tight-knit circle, I don't know where I'd be. Bear with me here. This is going to be a rough part. So I told you we were going to get through the fire service stuff, and now I'm going to get into something that was a rough experience. October 22nd, 2024. Lost a shift member. He took his own life. And I'm not going to get into the details of why he did what he did. I'm going to tell you my experience, my lessons I should have learned, the ones that I did learn. You see, when he did this, it wasn't because he was alone. Because as soon as we found out that he wasn't where he was supposed to be, we were on the road looking for him. There was a third person on scene. There was a police officer. And his wife and I were in constant contact. We just happened to pull up about the same time. She pulls in right in front of me. Get out of my truck. My first thought was, okay, we got him. We're good. I grabbed her, gave her a big old hug. I said, all right, we're good. And then where he was located at, I heard the police officer say, he's still breathing. And I looked at Brittany and I said, Brittany, I got to go help. So I left her there. I went back and I helped as much as I could. There was nothing that we could do. Fire chief shows up on the scene. I'm very proud of what he did. Not many fire chiefs would react the way that he did. He starts circling the wagons, calling all the folks, let them know what's going on. And he allowed me to call my shift, individually reach out to him, let him know what happened. And in the background, he's telling all the shift members, go to this city building that's right behind or right in front of our Station 1. We're all going to meet up there. And Brittany didn't want to leave until Jorge was transported. So we stayed on scene until about 2:30 in the morning. Then we left there. And we went to that City Hall annex, and everybody's out there. Department members, critical incident management teams, and peer support teams, pastors. They're all there. We met, we prayed. Then I went home. My wife was at home with our daughter. She had gone to the City Hall annex while I was at the scene for a while, and I told you she's huge support, but she was there for them when I couldn't be, because I was there for Jorge's wife. And when I got home, I sat down next to her on the bed, and she looked at me. She said, "Are you okay?" I simply told her no. But I knew that that was okay. It's okay to not be okay right then. We talked for a little bit. It's about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. I told her, you said, I'm going to go ahead and shower. I'll lay down in bed. And when I did, all I knew to do was pray. And I started with silence, just listening for what God was going to tell me. I'm here to stand before you today to tell you I heard a voice. And this is what it said. The voice of God told me, out of this, something good's going to happen. It will come. So just like you, I've been sitting in a crowd, multiple presentations about, have a plan, it's coming. Have a plan. Have a peer support team. Have an SOP on line of duty funerals. Have a plan. Here's what I thought. I work in civil, man. 3 stations. We're tight-knit. Never going to happen to us. Boy, was I wrong. Boy, was I not prepared. At all. I should have listened. Don't make the same mistake that I did. Please. I don't want you to experience that. So the lessons I did learn, like I told you, it won't happen here. Selflessness. See, the fire chief, he came up to me that night and he said, hey, I want you and your shift to take off this next tour. We were slated to work 2 days after that. I looked them all dead in the eye. I said, no, we're going back. I went home and I thought, you set all these standards and these expectations, and they're going to follow you. Because I know if I would have showed up that day, they all would have been there. Every single one of them, without question. They would have. I thought, what example is that setting for them? We're offered this by the fire chief. Take it. So we did. And instead of going to shift, everybody came over to my house. Did a workout. Broke bread together. Spent the day with one another. That was an important part of the healing process, to start. But as this went on, what I realized, I was given a servant's heart by God. I was built to be selfless. But you can do that at the detriment to yourself. And I did that. I gave too much. Because I was so overtly concerned with how are my shift members going to be and how are they doing and how am I going to get them through this? I took that responsibility on me, but it wasn't my responsibility. God had them from the very word go. They didn't need me. So there's one day that I was on shift, and just so happened my dad's going through some medical issues too, and we were in a meeting about some silly HR deal or whatever, and I heard the tones drop, and it was my dad's address, who lives right next to me. I transported him to the hospital. When I get back from that run and trying to figure out, well, what do I need to do? Do I need to go? My stepmom was with him. Should I just stay at work? And I started shaking. Couldn't stop. I walked into my fire chief's office and I sat down and I told him, I said, Chief, I can't do it right now. I need to go home. He sent me home. And I needed that. Because on that day, what I started to realize is, if I'm giving too much of myself, I don't have anything left to give to anybody else. I can't take care of anybody else if I can't take care of myself. See, I told you about if we start to lose the why, you have to have that tight-knit circle of people, right? Well, I didn't just lose the why. I lost a lot more than that. I lost a brother, a family member. And I did like a lot of other folks do when you go through this. Couldn't sleep. The best way to explain it is what I saw that night was playing in my head over and over like an 8mm film. It's what it looked like. Kept seeing it. Couldn't stop it. Unless I was talking to shift members or my brothers, then it would stop for a little bit, and then as soon as that ended, I was right back to it. And to dull that pain, I started self-medicating. Drinking too much because I couldn't sleep. Then I go back to that tight-knit circle of people. Constant communication with Nate Stern. who's gone through some tragedy of his own that he's going to share with you. I remember his example and him telling me about the experience that he had and diving into the bottle a little bit too much. And he came out on the backside. I thought, Tom, you can't continue to do this. And then I witnessed the example of Kevin. Giving up drinking. I had to end it right then and there. You see, there's this Bible verse that a lot of people take and they think it's misconstrued. That verse talks about God will never put anything on your plate that you can't handle. It's true, but I couldn't handle that. But you know what God did? He put the Shane Bentleys, Kevin Pflugers, the Nate Sturms, and my shift members in my life so that I could deal with it. So when you're building relationships, make sure it's with those right people that are going to be there for you. So what's the way forward? See, I knew that I couldn't do it myself. I was praying. And if you don't know Blake Sinnett, you'll see him today. And if you don't know about Next Rung, like Shane talked about, it's right there. I reached out to Blake. I said, Blake, I need help. And I need it bad. He said, I need somebody to talk to. I need somebody professional because I don't know what to do. And that day, he took some information and he got right back to me. He found this therapist right in my area. So reach out to her. So I did. She gave me some tools to help cope with the situation that I was not capable of dealing with. So don't be afraid. Like Blake says, break this stigma of it's not okay to talk about this stuff, because it is. It's okay. So, closing, here's what I want you to do. I want you to enjoy this week. Enjoy it. I want you to build some new relationships. Hold to that challenge. I'm going to hold you to it. Meet somebody new. Get their phone number. Learn something new. And the last part of that is I want you to pass it on. Pass it on to somebody else back at your house, your stations. Here's my phone number. If you ever need anything at all, text me, call me. My email address, if you're looking for me on Facebook, it's the younger, better looking Tom Hollick. I share that name with my dad. Same thing with Instagram. Guys, I thank you for your investment and just sitting here today, and I thank you for that. And I hope that you have a great fire conference. Thank y'all.